Greetings once again, Theory 2 students. This is probably going to be the second to the last video that I send you this semester. So I wanted to cover a few things that you'll need to know about coming up the rest of this week and then into the beginning of next week. I'm sure you are aware that we are in the last full week of classes for the semester, and the final exams are next week. As I'm taping this lecture, it is Tuesday, April 28th, 2020. So a couple things I wanted to let you know. First of all, that the final exam review is going to be sent to you through Canvas. I'll try to get to that actually this afternoon before I leave today. The review is not going to be to turn in, but I will be posting an exam review video with answers to the review that I'm sending you, with answers to the review, and I'm hoping to do that around Monday, May 4th. Monday, May 4th, that'll be about the last video that I send you for the class. And again, that'll cover the answers to the review, which I'll be sending you this week. Okay. The final exam itself will be sometime during the day on Wednesday, May 6th. That's when I'm planning to have it. That is the day that the exam is scheduled for our course. I don't have a particular time set yet. I'm going to give you probably a block or a window of time like I have with prior exams. And the time may not be the exact time that is given in the catalog for our final exam. But anyways, I do want you to plan Wednesday, May 6th. Hopefully you won't have to work too much that day or whatever, or you can get off that day so that you can devote your time to the final exam for this class. Alright, so again, here in the lecture for today, I would like to go over one more time how to spell and how to recognize secondary dominants. And I want to do that again because, well, usually one class or lecture on the topic is not really sufficient. And based on the homework assignment that I graded the other day, I think it was workbook pages 133 and 134, I know many of you could use basically another lecture or another learning stint in order to focus and figure out how to spell these secondary dominants and how to recognize them again. It doesn't hurt to go over it more than once. So, let me go ahead and start out by saying that remember from the last lecture that a secondary dominant is, number one, a chromatic chord, and number two, it's a chromatic chord that acts like a 5 or a 5/7 in its spelling and its resolution. But this 5 or 5/7 does not resolve to a harmony that is tonic. In other words, it resolves to a harmony that is not tonic. So, for example, if I have a 5 or I have a 5/7, as long as that 5 or 5/7 are a 5 or 5/7 of a chord that is not tonic, then we would call them secondary dominants. So, a 5 of 5, for instance, which we looked at that symbology last lecture, the slash is read as of. So a 5 of a 5 chord is actually going to go to a normal diatonic 5 chord in the key in which it's found. Okay? This symbol is read as the chord to the right of the slash is the 5, the primary chord, the normal chord that fits in the key. Let's say, for instance, we are in C major. So I know that the root of this chord is going to be G, and this is a G major triad, because G is the root of a 5 chord in the key of C. And this chord is also going to be a G chord. The root of this chord is also G. But when we are asking for a dominant of a 5 chord in the key of C, we need to then find the dominant of this chord by going up a fifth from this note as the root of this chord, going up a fifth to find the root of this chord. And for instance, a 5/7 of a 4, let's say we're in a minor key, maybe C minor, a 5/7 of a 4 is going to move to and go to, whoops, a 4 chord. A couple other reminders about secondary dominants. One other way of looking or thinking about a secondary dominant is to think of it as a chromatic chord that simulates the effect of a 5 or a dominant, but applies that function to a harmony other than the tonic chord again. And these would be two good examples of that right here on the screen. Now, whenever a major or a minor chord is preceded by its own dominant, so you notice how this is a major chord here and this is a minor chord, and they are being preceded by their own dominant. Whenever that occurs, what happens is the non-tonic chord out here is temporarily intensified to the point that it acquires the color of a tonic chord, but it does not assume the function of a tonic chord. So when I precede a minor 4 chord in C minor with its dominant, 7th, then the sound of this chord is elevated or basically intensified to a point that it kind of assumes the quality or the color of a tonic triad, even though this is not the tonic triad in the key that we're in. And when a major or minor chord is preceded by its own dominant or dominant 7th, we say that that major or minor chord is tonicized. We say that it's tonicized. It assumes the sound and the importance, so to speak, of a tonic very temporarily, but it is not tonic and it does not have tonic function. Okay. And of course, remember that when a non-tonic chord is tonicized, the key of the passage does not change. Okay? So if I have a 4 chord preceded by its dominant and it goes to a 4 chord, we're still in the same key throughout this entire process. It's just that the tonicization lasts for about 2 chords. The dominant of the non-tonic chord and then the chord that it resolves to. So if I were on the piano to set up C minor, then what I can do is I can play a 5/7 of a 4 chord and take it to a 4 chord and see what you think that sounds like. Okay, here's a 5/7 of a 4, and it's going to this chord. It sounds like dominant to tonic, just in that brief context. But I'm still in C minor, so it's really a dominant of something that's not tonic that's resolving to tonic. The tonic hasn't changed. The tonic still remains this chord right here. One other thing I want to review with you before we go into spelling and analyzing secondary dominants again for practice is that you must remember, it's very important to remember that a dominant of something is always going to be a major triad. Right? That means this part right here, that with the capital Roman numeral, that is always a major triad. And similarly, when you have a secondary dominant 7th, or a 5/7 of a chord, that dominant 7th is always a major minor 7th chord. We know it as capital M, little m, 7. A major minor 7th chord. And in order to spell a secondary dominant and a secondary dominant 7th, we always need to make our answers either major triads or major minor 7th chords. And that means whatever accidentals would be necessary to make our chords these exact types, we go ahead and use them as freely as we can. You feel free to use as many accidentals as you need to just to make your answer a major triad or a major minor seventh chord. Okay? Alright, now since these chords normally do not belong to the key in which they are used, that's what I was getting at, they usually contain at least one accidental. Sometimes secondary dominants or secondary dominant seventh chords contain more than one accidental. That's fine. There's no limit, there's no rule as to which accidentals you can write on the chord and which you can't, or how many you can and how many you can't. As long as you're making your final chord answer a major triad or a major minor seventh chord, you should be fine. And because they have accidentals, of course, these chords are considered to be chromatic chords as well. That's why they are chromatic chords, because 98% of them contain accidentals. Alright, now, one way to view how to spell a secondary dominant is to spell the chord in the key of the non-tonic chord that we are tonicizing. Okay. So, for example, let me give you more of a concrete illustration. Let's say I'm in the key of C major, and I need to spell a 5-7 of a 6 chord in the key of C major. Now again, let's get the labeling and the analysis symbols straight in our heads. The Roman numeral to the right of the slash refers to a chord that does fit into the key, just naturally and normally. Okay. So if I'm in C major and I look at the Roman numeral to the right of the slash, that is a Roman numeral 6. What is the root of a standard plain Jane 6 chord in C major? Well, you should come up with the note A. A is the root of this chord. Now, let's ask ourselves, what pitch or note would be the dominant of an A? Well, let's pretend we were in A minor for a second. What is the root of a dominant 7th chord if we were in A minor? Well, you go up a 5th from A, and you get the note E. So we have the root of this chord is going to be E, and this is the chord that we are trying to spell. We are not spelling this chord, we are spelling this chord. Now, I had said one way to think about how to spell a secondary dominant is to think of them, or spell them, in the key of the non-tonic chord that they are tonicizing. Okay? So let's think of how to spell a 5-7 in the key of A. This is the key of the non-tonic chord we're trying to tonicize here. Well, you know that the root is E, and in order to spell a 5-7 in the key of A minor that is, wouldn't we need to write E, G, B, D? But if we were in A minor, wouldn't we also need to raise the 7th scale degree of A minor as the leading tone of that key? Yes, we would normally. So if we were in A minor, we would still have no flats, no sharps, but we would spell the 5-7 in A minor as E, G sharp, B, D. So that's one way to look at how to spell secondary dominants. If you want to temporarily think in the key of the chord you're trying to tonicize, in this case it would be A minor, how would you spell then a 5-7 in A minor? Well, you'd spell it exactly like this. You'd use E and you'd use G sharp, and then you'd use B and D. And lo and behold, that turns out to be a major minor 7th chord. So that is the correct way to spell it. Another way to view how to spell a secondary dominant is to, as I was saying before, use whatever accidentals would be necessary to make or spell a major triad or a major minor 7th chord. So, if I use another example, let's say I'm still in the key of C major, but I want to spell a 5 of a 3 chord. A 5 of a 3. Well, go to the chord that's sitting to the right of the slash first. What is the root of a 3 chord in C major? Well, it'd be E. So really, this Roman numeral 3 to the right of the slash represents an E minor triad in the key of C. How do I find the dominant to E? Well, I just go up a perfect fifth from E, and I'll get the dominant note, or the root of the chord I'm trying to spell, the dominant of E. So, E up a perfect fifth is the note B. And, using the second method, all I need to do now is spell a major triad on a B. But bear in mind, I don't have B major's or E major's key signature up here. I have C major's key signature up here. So, in order to spell a B major triad, but in the wrong key signature, or in a key signature we wouldn't expect, to make it a major triad, I need B, D sharp, and I need F sharp. So again, these Roman numeral symbols, they help us find the roots of the chords that are being represented in the analysis symbol. And once we find the root of the chord, all we have to do is spell a major triad or a major minor seventh chord on that root. But we have to take into account that we're not in a typical key or the normal key that we would expect when we normally spell these chords. So that's why we have to be very conscious of using accidentals, because we're in a different key signature, and we need to make the chord no matter what. We need to make our answer a major triad or a major minor seventh chord, depending on whether you have a 5-7 of something or a 5 of something. By the way, for those of you that are maybe still thinking about how to spell major minor seventh chords, I can use this example over here. The interval content, so to speak, or the stacked intervals to spell any major minor seventh chord are a major third, then above that note, then you get a minor third, and then above that note, finally, another minor third. So if you stack from the bottom, from the root, if you stack a major third on top, and then a minor third on top of that one, and then a minor third on top of that note, your final answer will be a major minor seventh chord. Alright, let's go through one more, let's go through an example that I have on a separate piece of paper, which I will show you on the screen here. And we'll go through, once again, the 3 steps that are found in your textbook on page 258, the 3 steps on how to spell a secondary dominant chord. Now, you do not have these particular problems in front of you. These problems I made many years ago. This was actually part of a quiz that I gave in class on spelling and recognizing secondary dominants. But because we are dealing with remote instruction at the end of the semester, and the semester is almost over, we don't have time for a quiz like this, so I'll just go through the problems with you together here in this video. So, the first one, it says, here's a Roman numeral of a chord that we have to spell, and here is the staff and the clef and the key in which we need to spell that given chord. So, it looks like for number 1, we're in D major. You can see the 2 sharps already provided for you in the key signature for D major. And we need to spell correctly on this staff a 5-4-2 of a 2 chord. Alright? Now, the first step is to find the root of the chord that's being tonicized. That is, what is the root of the chord to the right of the slash? Well, this chord belongs properly in the key we're working with. So what is the root of a 2 chord in D? And you should come up with the note E. This, lowercase Roman numeral 2, is referring to an E minor chord, an E minor triad. Now, once we have that information, now we can find what note is the dominant of E. Okay, so here's the second step to spelling this chord. Once you find the root of this chord, go up a perfect fifth, and you'll find the root of the chord you need to spell. Okay. So up a perfect fifth from E is B. So I'm going to try to spell on the staff here, what I'm being asked to spell is a B major minor seventh chord. And you can see that that seventh chord will eventually need to be written in third inversion or 4/2 inversion. But at least I know what I'm dealing with and what I need to spell, right? I need to spell a B major minor seventh chord, and then I'll put it in third inversion and place it on the staff with any necessary accidentals. Alright, so let me write the notes maybe before I put them in the staff out in the margin here. How do you spell a major minor seventh chord on B? Well, it's going to be B, then D sharp, then F sharp, and then A. Those four exact notes. And please be careful when you do these, when you spell these. Don't just say, oh, the chord is B, D, F, A, and then just write it up on the board in the correct inversion, because that's a little bit lazy. No, it's not just B, D, F, A. It's B, D sharp, F sharp, and A. That will get you the right spelling of the chord and the right notes on the staff. Alright, so let's do that here. I'm going to write out in the margin we have B, D sharp, F sharp, and A. Hopefully you can see that. Alright, then I'm going to write it on the staff in the correct inversion and with the correct accidentals. So for third inversion, I'm going to put the A of the chord, the seventh of the chord, on the bottom. So I'll do that here. And so I have A, and then my root B, and then I have D, but D sharp, and then I also need an F sharp. Now, I guess I could put a sharp on the F, but it looks like F sharp is already in the key signature. So really, my final answer just needs to be A, B, D sharp, and this F is already sharp from the key signature. And those are the exact notes that I had come up with. Those are the exact notes I had chosen. That's going to be the answer, and so I write them on the board. I write them on the staff. Okay. Let's do the next one. We're in F major. And we need to spell a 5/7 of a 5. Okay? The root of the 5 chord to the right of the slash, well, a 5 in the key of F. The root of this chord would be C. Now, what is C's dominant? Go up a fifth from C, and you should get the note G. So we're saying G is the root of this chord because G is the dominant of C, and C is the true dominant in the key of F. Okay. So if the root of the chord we're trying to spell is G, let's think about how to spell a major minor seventh chord in root position on a G. Well, let me put it in the margin, and what you should come up with would be G, B natural, in D, and F. Okay. We do not even have to write this chord in inversion, just in root position. But notice that my key signature is for the key of F. So I've got one flat B flat in the key. But I need to spell a G major minor seventh chord, so G, B natural, D, and F. I'm going to have to put a natural on my B in order to get this chord spelled and sounding correctly for what I'm being asked to spell. Okay, so let's do that. We're in the treble clef. There's the root in root position, G, B natural, D, and F. In fact, let me put my natural even closer so there's no confusion. There we go. That is my final answer for that one. And for the last one then, we're asked to spell a 5-6-5 of a 4 chord in B flat major. Once again, the root of the chord to the right of the slash. This 4 chord is and belongs correctly in B flat major. What is the root of a 4 chord in B flat major? Well, it's E flat. E flat, not E sharp, not E natural, not E double flat or E double sharp, but E flat is the correct root for this chord in this key. So, what is the dominant pitch of E flat? Well, go up exactly a perfect fifth from E flat, and you should get the pitch B flat. B flat. So, my answer is going to be a B flat major minor 7th chord in first inversion. Okay. Let me put the notes of a B flat major minor 7th chord out here in the margin first. So we're going to need B flat, and we're going to need D, and we're going to need F, and we're going to need A flat. Those are the true notes of a B flat major minor 7th chord. These are the pitches that we would get if we were thinking as if we were in the key of E flat major temporarily. That's how we would spell a 5-7 if we were a regular 5-7 if we were in E flat major. But I just go find the root, that's usually what I do, and then I know how to spell a major minor 7th or dominant 7th on any note. That's how I get my answers. Alright, so putting this chord in first inversion, we need the D, the third of the chord, on the bottom. So my final answer should look like this. D, F, and I needed A flat, right? And then I need a B flat. And the B is already flat from the key signature. So yes, I do have B flat, D, F, A flat, and it's in first inversion. So that is my final answer. There are 3 other problems on this quiz that I'd like to go through with you. This is analyzing or recognizing how to label secondary dominants and dominant 7ths when they're given to you. Okay? And there are 3 steps to recognizing a secondary dominant. First of all, the chord that you're looking at must be a major triad or a major minor 7th chord. If it is not a major triad or a major minor 7th chord, it can't be a capital 5 of anything or a capital 5-7 of anything, because 5 and 5-7s are always major triads or major minor 7th chords respectively. That's the first step. Alright, let's apply that step to number 4 here. The chord we're looking at, even though we're in C major, the chord we're looking at is B, D sharp, F sharp, A. Is that, well, it looks like it's a 7th chord, is that a major minor 7th chord? Yes, it is. It is a major minor 7th chord. So far, we're thinking that this chord could potentially be a 5-7 of something. I don't know what it's a 5-7 of yet, but I know it could be a 5-7 of something. Well, let's find out what that something would be. We're saying if this is a 5-7 of something, that means this chord's root, the B, is the dominant of the something it would be a 5 of. So, if B is the dominant, what note would be the temporary tonic? Well, what you do is you go down a perfect fifth from the root of this chord, and a perfect fifth below a B exactly is the note E. Okay? And the third step then is to say, is there a chord on an E, major or minor chord, that we can build on E that exists naturally and normally in the key of C major? And the answer is yes. An E minor triad naturally, normally occurs in C. Right? Okay, so if B is the dominant to an E, that means we're saying that this given chord here is a 5-7 of a what? Well, what Roman numeral in C major has a root of E? That would be Roman numeral 3. And we know in C major the 3 chord is minor. Right? So I'll put a 5/7 of a lowercase 3. And that's my final answer for that. Going on to number 5. Let's first of all determine if the chord we're given is a major triad or a major minor 7th chord. It looks like we have the notes, if I were to put it in root position, we have A flat, C, E flat, and G flat. Is A flat, C, E flat, G flat a major minor 7th chord? Yes, it is. Okay. So it looks like our answer is going to be a 5/7 of something. Even more specifically, what inversion is this 7th chord in? It looks like it's in second inversion. So really our answer is going to be a 5/4/3 slash, or a 5/4/3 of something. Let's find out what it would be a 5/4/3 of. Remember, find the root of this chord, which is A flat, not the bottom note in this case, but the A flat. And if A flat is the dominant pitch, what note is the tonic pitch? We'll go down a perfect fifth from A flat, and you should come up with the pitch D flat. Because down a perfect fifth from A flat is D flat. And D flat would be the root of the chord that fits in this key. In other words, it would be the root of the chord we are tonicizing, the chord that goes to the right of the slash. Okay, now remember, the chord to the right of the slash must always be a major or a minor triad. It cannot be diminished ever. So, does a major or a minor triad on D flat normally or diatonically occur in the key of A flat major? And you should say, oh, well, a D flat major chord normally occurs in this key, right? Because D flat is scale degree 4 in A flat, and I know 4 chords are major chords in major keys. So it looks like what our final answer is turning out to be is a 5/4/3. We said, remember, that chord is in second inversion as it is on the staff. It's a 5/4/3 of a capital 4. And that is my final answer. Again, once you have the answer, you can look again. Do you see how A flat is the dominant of D flat? So this is a 5/7 of D flat. And D flat in this key would support or be the root of a major 4 chord. The last problem on this quiz, again, find out if the chord that you're looking at is a major triad or a major minor 7th chord. Putting it in the proper order here, the root of this chord is G. We have G, B natural, D, and F. Is, as a 7th chord, is G, B natural, D, F a dominant or a major minor 7th chord? Yes, it is. So we know that our answer over here is going to be 5/7 of, or slash, some chord. Now, specifically, what inversion is this chord in? Well, because the 7th of the chord is on the bottom, it looks like it's in third inversion. So I know my answer is going to be a 5/4/2 of something. Let me go write that in before I even forget. What is this chord GBD? What is it a 5/4/2 of? In other words, what chord is G the dominant of? Because again, G is the root. Well, if G is the dominant, then if you go down a perfect fifth, you should get to the note C. So this chord, as it's written, is a dominant of a chord built on C. Now, what kind of chord do we get on C in the key of B flat major? Just diatonically. Is not C scale degree 2 of B flat major, right? And in major keys, isn't the 2 chord always a minor triad, right? So we're saying that this chord is a 5/4/2 of a C minor chord. And a C minor chord in this key is simply represented by the Roman numeral lowercase 2. So that's what's going to go to the right of the slash. And my final answer is a 5, 4, 2 of a 2. So, to recap the steps on how to analyze a secondary dominant, find the root of the chord, look at the chord that's given to you and ask yourself, is it a major triad or major minor 7th chord? If it is not, then you don't have to go any further and you can just put a big X in the blank. If it is a major triad or major minor 7th chord, like all three of these were, then find the root of that chord and go down a perfect fifth to find what the root of the chord it would be a dominant of is. Okay. So in this case, the root is B. I went down a perfect fifth, and I know now that B is the dominant of E. And if a major or minor triad built on this root that we calculated here occurs normally in the key shown, then we do indeed have a secondary dominant or dominant 7th. And in this case we did, because a minor triad normally a minor triad built on E normally occurs in C major. It occurs as a Roman numeral 3. If I can't put a Roman numeral on it, on building a chord on the root that I found and I can't put a Roman numeral on it, then I just have to put a big X in the blank. And also, I need to remind you that, let me go to a different screen. I need to remind you that only major and minor triads can be tonicized by a secondary dominant. That means you can never have this. You could never have that. Because diminished triads can never, not even for a fraction of a beat, they can never sound temporarily like tonic. They don't have the stability and the quality of the major and the minor triads. Right? We don't have a 1 diminished, and since we never have a diminished tonic, we can't have a secondary dominant of a diminished chord. Which means we can also not have this ever, a 5 of 7, 7, or a 5 of 7 fully diminished 7, or a 5 of a 2, or a 5 of a 2 half diminished 7, or anything of that nature. The chord to the right of the slash must always be a major or a minor triad. And maybe this hasn't entered your mind yet, but I'll point it out here anyway, since I think I have a few minutes left on this videotape. And that is, it doesn't make sense to write a 5 or a 5, 7 of 1, right? That's just silly. That's overkill. You don't need to go that far. Because a 5 or a 5, 7 of 1 is just plain old 5 or 5, 7. So it doesn't even make sense to write this kind of analysis symbol, or even a 5 or 5, 7 of a minor 1. It doesn't make sense, because a 5 or 5, 7 of 1 is just regular 5 or 5, 7. So this would not be permitted, and neither would any of these be permitted. So, I'm hoping that this run-through again on spelling and analyzing secondary dominants is helpful. There are exercises in Self-Test 16.1 in your textbook. That's the bottom of page 259 and the top of page 260. You can get extra, further practice on spelling and recognizing these chromatic chords, these secondary dominants. And you can also check your answers to all those self-test problems in the back of your book to verify that you are spelling these right, that you're remembering the right accidentals, that you're calculating the roots correctly, and that you're placing them in the corrected version. I know there's a lot of details to pay attention to and to keep in your mind, but I think if you do it step by step and you understand the concept of what we're trying to spell, and how that chord relates to a chord that really does belong in the key, then I think you'll be able to be very successful with getting this. It just takes a lot of practice. It takes experience. So let me go ahead and stop there. And as I said at the top of this lecture, I will be sending you the final exam review through Canvas. that is not to turn in, but you do want to complete it and do every part of it so that you're ready for when I give you the final lecture, which will be going over the answers to that review. Take any time that you have to go through examples and to practice. That's going to improve your skill in theory better really than any other way. Alright, so have a good rest of your week, and I'll probably send you a video at the beginning of next week.